In November 2025, New South Wales Police executed one of their most significant operations against organised crime in Sydney, dismantling an alleged drug supply network with connections to the notorious KVT criminal syndicate. But this wasn't just another drug bust. At the centre of the investigation was Eparama Navale, a talented rugby league player whose story reflects the devastating way organised crime can infiltrate even the most promising lives. This is the story of Strike Force Duncan, a $16.5 million drug operation, and the thin line between sporting glory and criminal enterprise. Tuesday, November 19th, 2025, began like any other morning across Sydney's southwest. But for three men allegedly connected to the KVT network, it would be a day that changed everything. At 5:30 AM, Taskforce Falcon detectives executed a coordinated series of arrests that had been months in the making. The first target was an Edmondson Park unit, where 28-year-old Eparama Navale was arrested in a dawn raid. Just minutes earlier, at 5 AM, Raptor Squad officers had stopped a vehicle on the Great Western Highway at Glenbrook, taking 28-year-old William Revoker into custody. At 6:30 AM, the net closed on the third suspect when detectives arrested 24-year-old George Sukarnavalu in Peakhurst. The scale of the operation was staggering. Police seized approximately 40 kilograms of illicit drugs with an estimated street value of $12.5 million. But the charges told an even larger story. Authorities allege the three men were involved in supplying around 55 kilograms of drugs worth an estimated $16.5 million. To understand the significance of this arrest, we need to talk about who Eparama Navale is, and more importantly, who he could have been. Eparama wasn't just another face in the criminal underworld. He was a talented rugby league player who had worked his way through the New South Wales Cup, the second tier of Australian Rugby League. He made his debut for Blacktown Workers in 2024, a moment that should have been the beginning of a promising career. What made that debut even more special was that he played alongside his younger brother, Caleb Navale. For any rugby league family, having two brothers take the field together is a moment of immense pride. During the 2025 season, Eparama played 5 games for the Newtown Jets, scoring 3 tries and showing the kind of talent that had scouts paying attention. But while Eparama's career was progressing steadily through the New South Wales Cup, his younger brother was rising even faster. Caleb had signed with the Manly Sea Eagles and appeared in 9 first-grade NRL games across 2 seasons, living the dream that many young rugby league players chase their entire lives. It's important to note that Caleb Navale is not accused of any wrongdoing. By all accounts, while one brother was allegedly building a criminal empire, the other was building a legitimate sporting career. The arrests didn't happen overnight. Strike Force Duncan was initially established to investigate organised criminal networks involved in obtaining kill cars and drug supply. Kill cars, for those unfamiliar with the term, are stolen vehicles used in serious crimes and then destroyed to eliminate evidence. The fact that police were investigating this aspect shows the level of sophistication they were dealing with. Earlier in 2025, Strike Force Duncan was moved under the umbrella of Taskforce Falcon as part of New South Wales's broader crackdown on violent and organised crime. In September, detectives began focusing specifically on the alleged drug supply activities of 3 men they believed were linked to the KVT network. For 2 months, investigators gathered evidence, conducted surveillance and built their case. The result was the coordinated operation in November that brought all 3 suspects into custody. The charges against Eparama Navale paint a picture of someone allegedly deeply embedded in serious organised crime. He faces 14 offences, a list that reads like a prosecutor's handbook on major drug operations. The most serious charges include 5 counts of supplying a commercial quantity of drugs and 4 counts of supplying an indictable quantity of drugs. But the charges go beyond simple drug supply. Eparama is also charged with directing the activities of a criminal group, which suggests police believe he played a leadership role in the operation. There's also a charge for ongoing drug supply, indicating this wasn't a one-time transaction, but rather a sustained criminal enterprise. Additional charges include handling explosives or precursors without a license, which raises questions about whether the operation involved drug manufacturing. He's also charged with knowingly dealing with the proceeds of crime and participating in a criminal group. Perhaps most telling is the charge added after his initial court appearance, failing to comply with a digital evidence access order. In plain terms, police allege he refused to provide the password to an electronic device. In the digital age, phones and computers often contain the most damning evidence in criminal cases, and a refusal to provide access can itself be a criminal offence. When Eparama Navale's matter was briefly mentioned at Liverpool local court on Wednesday, November 20th, he didn't appear in person. His lawyer appeared on his behalf, and notably, there was no application for bail. This decision speaks volumes. When defence lawyers don't even attempt to secure bail, it usually means they know the case against their client is strong enough that release is virtually impossible. Magistrate Claire Farnan didn't mince words, describing the alleged offences as very serious. Eparama remains behind bars, with his next court appearance scheduled for January 14th, 2026 at Campbelltown Local Court, when a brief of evidence is expected to be served. The same pattern played out for his co-accused. William Revoker made no application for bail and was therefore refused. George Sukarnaivalu also didn't apply for bail at Sutherland Local Court. All three men are yet to enter pleas, and the legal process will likely take many months, if not years, to resolve. To understand the full context of these arrests, we need to talk about KVT. The KVT is a criminal syndicate composed primarily of Fijian nationals based in Sydney. The fact that New South Wales Police's Taskforce Falcon is specifically targeting KVT associates shows that Australian law enforcement recognises this group as a significant threat to public safety. The involvement of specialised units like the Raptor Squad, which focuses on serious and organised crime, further underscores the seriousness with which authorities are treating this network. If you want a full breakdown of the KVT, I made a video covering them, which you should check out after this. The New South Wales Rugby League acted swiftly once the charges became public. In a statement, the organisation confirmed that Eparama Navale's registration has expired and made it clear they will not consider re-registering him while the charges are outstanding. This response is standard for sporting organisations facing criminal allegations against registered players, but it represents the end of a career that had shown genuine promise. Whether Eparama will ever play rugby league again depends entirely on the outcome of his criminal case, and given the severity of the charges, even if acquitted, the damage to his reputation and career may be irreparable. This case raises uncomfortable questions about how organised crime intersects with legitimate society. Here was a man who had the talent and opportunity to build a career in professional sport, playing alongside his brother and potentially following him into the NRL. Yet, allegedly, at the same time, he was involved in a drug supply operation worth millions of dollars. How does someone make that choice? Was it financial pressure? The allure of fast money? Connections formed earlier in life that proved impossible to break? We may never know the full story, but the case serves as a stark reminder that organised crime doesn't always look like what we see in the movies. Sometimes it looks like a rugby league player with a promising future. The legal process is just beginning for Eparama Navale and his co-accused. The brief of evidence due in January will outline the prosecution's case in detail, and defence lawyers will then begin the work of challenging that evidence and building their clients' cases. Given the seriousness of the charges and the amount of drugs allegedly involved, if convicted, all three men face the prospect of lengthy prison sentences. For the Navale family, this case represents a tragedy regardless of the outcome. One brother's career is on hold while he faces the justice system. The other brother, Caleb, must continue his NRL career under the shadow of his siblings' alleged crimes, constantly reminded by media coverage and public attention of a family situation no one would wish for. The arrest of Eparama Navale and his alleged associates represents a significant blow to the KVT network's operations in Sydney. For New South Wales Police and Taskforce Falcon, it's a validation of months of investigative work and a demonstration that organised crime, no matter how sophisticated, can be disrupted. As this case moves through the courts in the months ahead, it will serve as a reminder that organised crime doesn't discriminate. It reaches into all corners of society, including the sporting world that many young Australians dream of joining. The question now is whether the justice system will send a strong enough message to deter others who might be tempted to follow the same path. The legal principle of presumption of innocence remains, and Eparama Navale and his co-accused have not been convicted of any crimes. But regardless of the eventual outcome, the damage is done. A promising sporting career is on hold, a family is in turmoil, and 3 men face the prospect of spending many years behind bars. This is the reality of organised crime in modern Australia, and this is the story of Strike Force Duncan. Let me know what you think below in the comments. If you want more stories from the Australian underworld, please consider subscribing and liking this video. It really helps me out and helps the channel grow. Till next time, take care.